dragi svi koji ste online na Facebooku. Ovo će biti jedno predavanje na engleskom jeziku, zbog toga što ja baš nisam najbolja u izražavanju na hrvatskom. Ali ima nekih dijelova koje ću čitati iz Bhagavad Gita, koji će biti na hrvatskom jeziku. Sad dalje ću nastaviti na engleskom. So, anyway, the practitioners of Bhakti Yoga are from all over the world, so it's sometimes nice to have lectures in English language because there are not so many in Croatia. So we are going to discuss Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 1, which is entitled Spiritual Masters. And before we start with giving lectures or reading any book in our line of Bhakti Yoga, we always try to chant some prayers for the blessings, that we can benefit others with what we speak and also benefit ourselves. So before someone is talking about Chaitanya Charitamrita or reciting Chaitanya Charitamrita, we sing a little verse. And actually, when I sing a little shloka, you should repeat, and then I sing another one and you repeat, and we do this 3 times. So it's like a prayer for auspiciousness. So let us start. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. And then you say Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gura Bhakta Vrinda. And then I say again Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gura Bhakta Vrinda. So we are actually addressing the personalities of whom Chaitanya Charitamrita speaks about. So Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, Advaita, and all the associates of Lord Chaitanya, the devotees. So we call upon on their auspiciousness. So this chapter 1 is called Spiritual Masters. And it doesn't talk about only spiritual masters. It talks about 6 features in which the Lord enjoys in the creation. And we will talk about them, but Srila Prabhupada, when he writes the purpose and when he explains and gives emphasis in this chapter, he emphasizes a lot the spiritual master, like who is the spiritual master, how it's very, very important that a person has a spiritual master. And before we start, we will also recite the prayers, but in Croatia, from the Bhagavad Gita, just that you maybe understand the mood. Because the mood of the first chapter is actually glorifying and asking for the blessings. So first 14 verses of the chapter 1 are called Mangala Charanam, which means these are prayers recited that we call upon auspiciousness. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who wrote Chaitanya Charitamrita, he's asking for blessings because he's just a disciple. He wants the blessings of his spiritual masters. So he's offering prayers to them. And usually before any one of us speaks anything about the topic of the Lord or about Bhakti Yoga, we recite prayers. And we will recite few of them. You can find them if you have Bhagavad Gitas in the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yenam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manav Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantika. Which means, in Croatian, rodio sam se u najdubljoj tmini neznanja. Moj duhovni učitelj otvorio mi je oči buktinjom znanja, which is the torch of knowledge. Odajem mu svoje ponizno poštovanje. Kada će mi Srila Rupa Goswami, koji je u ovom materijalnom svijetu postavio temelje misiji kako bi ispunio želju gospodina Chaitanje, dati utočište svojih lotosovih stopala. So you can see that they are asking for some blessings and benedictions, like a shelter. And this point of asking for a shelter is very, very, very significant when talking about spiritual masters. And then the prayers go. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. Odajem svoje ponizno poštovanje lotosovim stopulima moga duhovnog učitelja i stopulima svih Vajšnava. Odajem svoje ponizno poštovanje lotosovim stopalima Šila Rupe Gosvamija, njegovog starijeg brata Sanatane Gosvamija, Raghunat Dase, Raghunat Bate, Gopala Bate i Šila Džive Gosvamija. Odajem svoje ponizno poštovanje gospodinu Krišni Čeitanji, gospodinu Nityanandi, Advaityačari, Gadadari, Šrivasi i drugim pratiocima. Odajem svoje ponizno poštovanje Šrimati Radharani i Šri Krišni i njihovim pratiljama Šri Laliti i Višaki. He Krishna, Karuna Sindhu, Dinabando, Jagatpate, Gopesha, Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta, namostute. Dragi moj Krishna, ti si prijatelj nesretnih i izvor stvorenog svijeta, gospodar si Gopija i ljubavnik Radharani. Odajem ti svoje ponizno poštovanje. Tapta Kančana Gorangi, Radhe Vrindavanešvari, Vrishabhanu Sute Devi, Pranamami, Hari Prije. Odajem svoje ponizno poštovanje Radharani, kraljici Vrindavane, čija put nalikuje topljenom zlatu. Ti si kći kralja Vrishabhanova i veoma si draga gospodinu Krišni. Vanča kalpata rubjašća, kripa sindubja evača, patitanam pavanebio, vajšnavebio namo namaha. Odajem svoje ponizno poštovanje svim vajšnavama, gospodinovim baktama. Oni mogu ispuniti želje svih živih bića poput drveća želja i puni su samilosti prema palim dušama. Šri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Šri Advaita Gadadara, Šri Vasari Gora Bhakta Vrinda. Odajem svoje ponizno poštovanje Šri Krishni Chaitanyi, Prabhu Nityanandi, Šri Advaiti Gadadari, Šri Vasi i svima koji slijede put predanosti. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Dakle, kad izgovorimo ovakve molitve, onda možemo then we can say that we ask for blessings of others so that what we speak can be beneficial for others. And this is something that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami did in chapter 1 of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So he prayed actually to all the personalities that we listed now, but in his own way. So when we give these lectures in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we're going to go through the chapters. And if you would like to follow, you can also read for yourself at home so that you will know what we are going to talk about. I'm just going to put some emphasis on things that are spoken in the chapter. I'm not going to go through each verse or read everything that is there. So as we said first, that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he mentions 6 features of the Lord in this first chapter. And it is said that Lord Krishna enjoys by manifesting himself in these 6 features. So actually when we worship all these 6 features, we worship the Lord. So these 6 features are spiritual masters, devotees, Supreme Lord, incarnations, manifestations or expansions, and eternal potencies. So we're going to talk about all 6 of them. And we're going to start with spiritual masters. And why? We will read. So this lecture will also be a little bit of reading, a little bit of commenting. So it is very important actually to read from the introduction from this chapter, which was written by Srila Prabhupada, because here he emphasizes the importance of the disciplic succession. It is called in Sanskrit Guru Parampara. And he will actually mention a part of Guru Parampara in this introduction. And he will emphasize how important it is to have a spiritual master and how all these personalities that are mentioned here, whatever knowledge they have, whatever realizations they have, they owe it to their spiritual master. And we will also learn that the whole disciplic succession, when we want to see who is the source of the disciplic succession, it is Krishna. So everything they speak about actually comes from the Lord himself. So What Krishna spoke in the Bhagavad Gita, all the instructions, they're just repeating. So basically, there is no difference from what Krishna speaks in Bhagavad Gita and the instructions of the spiritual master. So let us read first the introduction of the chapter. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than the combined form of Sri Radha and Krishna. And this is something that we spoke about in our first class, which we had 2 weeks ago. It was Introduction to Chaitanya Charitamrita, and there we explained how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is actually a combination of Radha and Krishna. This is something that will be explained by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in this chapter 1. He will explain how come he appeared, what are the external reasons of why Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in this material world, and also what are his internal reasons. External reasons are usually the reasons that benefit us, that benefit the world. So that's why he appears, so that he can give us blessings, mercy, and benefit us. But internal reasons of the Lord, when he appears, are usually because he wants to satisfy his desires. And we will learn what are his desires that he wants to satisfy. So, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the life of those devotees who strictly follow in the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami. Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Sanatana Goswami are two principal followers of Srila Swarupa Damodara Goswami, who acted as the most confidential servitor of Lord Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, known as Vishvambara in his early life. A direct disciple of Srila Rupa Goswami was Srila Raghunadas Goswami. The author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, stands as the direct disciple of Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Raghunadas Goswami. The direct disciple of Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was Srila Narottam Das Thakur, who accepted Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti as his servitor. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur accepted Srila Jagannath Das Babaji, the spiritual master of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, who in turn accepted Srila Gorakishora Das Babaji, the spiritual master of Om Vishnupad, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, the divine master of our humble self. Which means that since this is spoken by Srila Prabhupada, the humble self is him. Since we belong to this chain of disciplic succession from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this edition of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita will contain nothing newly manufactured by our tiny brains, but only remnants of food originally eaten by Lord himself. The subject matter of this book is not a mental concoction, but a factual spiritual experience that one can realize only by accepting the line of disciplic succession described above. So, why is this introduction so important? It is important because it establishes the authority of Chaitanya Charitamrita. It was written by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, and there are so many names that were mentioned here. Some of you might know who these personalities are, and some of you might not know who they are. But you have them actually listed in the Bhagavad Gita. So this Bhagavad Gita you can find in the Bhakti Yoga Center or in this temple in Zagreb. So on page 28, here you have a disciplic succession. So basically all the names that, not all the names actually, most of the names actually that pertain to Kali Yuga, this age, and 500 years back are also mentioned here. But these are only ones that are mentioned here in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So these are actually the names of 6 Goswamis, which were very enlightened saints that lived in the time of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda Prabhu. And they will also be mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Their lives will be mentioned, the instructions that they personally received from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we know Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's the Lord God. He's the combination of the feminine aspect of the Lord and the masculine aspect of the Lord. And he's the absolute truth. So he's the one who is giving instructions, direct instructions about how to perform devotional life to Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. And they also teach other Goswamis. There are 6 Goswamis in Vrindavan, and they are known because they wrote so many books about devotional service, which were based actually on the instructions of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they also had disciples. So Raghunath Das Goswami had a disciple who was Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami. And Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, he wrote this Chaitanya Charitamrita. And his disciple was Narottam Das Thakur. And Narottam Das Thakur is an amazing personality who wrote many songs. He wrote devotional poetry about devotional service, about his emotions. And everything actually that is written in the Bhagavad Gita, in Srimad Bhagavatam, is realized by him through these songs. And these songs are actually equal to the scriptures. So if you want to know about devotional service, and if you want to know it from the authority who really knows about these things, you should sing and read the songs of Srila Narottam Das Thakur. And Srila Narottam Das Thakur, he accepted Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur for his disciple. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is an amazing personality as well. He also gave commentaries and his realizations, especially on Srimad Bhagavatam. He wrote commentaries on Srimad Bhagavatam. And actually, what we are reading today in Srimad Bhagavatam is mostly based on his commentaries, because Srila Prabhupada used his commentaries while writing Srimad Bhagavatam. And then Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur accepted Srila Jagannath Das Babaji as a spiritual master, as a disciple. And he was one of the spiritual masters of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And Bhakti Vinod Thakur is another amazing personality of whom you should read about his life. He was a judge. He was also a temple president in Jagannath Puri. He wrote amazing books. He tried to bring close Bhakti Yoga to the Christian communities. He writes a lot about what it means to love the Lord in connection with the Christian philosophy. And he actually wrote the life and teachings of Lord Chaitanya in English language, and he sent these books, I think, to Canada, anyway, to the Western world. And then that was, I think, in 19th century. And then when Srila Prabhupada came to the West in the 20th century, in the 60s, then his disciples, they found these books, I think, in London, but someone can correct me if I'm wrong, and also in Canada. So in a way, it's amazing, because it's like he opened the door, and then his desire became fulfilled by the activities of Srila Prabhupada. And the activities of Srila Prabhupada were actually based on the preachings of his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who was the son of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. So you can see how everything is connected, and it's really emphasized here, and Srila Prabhupada says it, that since we belong to this chain of disciplic succession from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so you can understand this line at least a little bit. So this edition of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita will contain nothing newly manufactured by our tiny brains. So this is nothing that is invented by Srila Prabhupada or by them. It is just what is heard from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who spoke this knowledge about devotional service and gave instructions to Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. So, and that's why he says it's only the remnants of food originally eaten by the Lord himself. And he said that it does not deviate even slightly from the revealed scriptures, and therefore anyone who follows in the disciplic line will be able to realize the essence of this book simply by the method of oral reception. So there is a verse in the Bhagavad Gita which is very important, and this chapter emphasizes this verse, and that is just a second. I'm not always secure about my quoting of the Gita verses in Sanskrit, but I have to practice. So, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina, which means that just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The learned soul will help you and impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. So sometimes we think, oh, this is a spiritual master who is so elevated and so pure, and he has seen the truth. So he has seen with his eyes Krishna. That is truth, partly. But what does it mean when someone sees the truth? Actually, according to the scriptures and the descriptions of Srimad Bhagavatam, it means to hear the truth. Because the pure devotees, they can see the Lord by oral reception. So that's why Srimad Bhagavatam especially emphasizes hearing. That only by hearing the glories of the Lord, we can understand the Lord, and one day we can see the Lord. Because this hearing purifies the heart, and it entangles us from these gunas of material nature. And it cleanses our heart, and it allows the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be established in our heart. And therefore it is also said that pure devotees, they see the Lord situated in their hearts. So there are so many ways in which we can see the Lord. Brahma Samhita says that the devotees can see the Lord through their eyes, who are smeared with the ointment of love. So because they love Krishna, because they want to serve Krishna, they understand Krishna is everywhere, and they have a reciprocation with Krishna, and therefore they see him everywhere through the eyes of love. Their whole life is actually centered around Krishna. And some people who are not so pure or so into this practice of bhakti yoga, they can see the material world as it is, you know, in the sense, so, oh, I'm here, I'm separated from everyone else. Here is nature, here is this, here is that. Like, they don't see this connection of everything, and they don't see the Lord in everything. They don't see him as the proprietor of everything, as the beneficiary of everything, as the well-wisher of everyone, as everyone's friend. So they don't see the Lord in their lives, so therefore they cannot see. But the one who can see all this, they can see the Lord. And they can only see it only because they have heard it from their spiritual master. So that's like the important thing. So they can impart knowledge, spiritual master can impart knowledge unto you only because he has seen the truth. And how did he see the truth? By being given that knowledge by his spiritual master. So the most important function, the most important duty of the disciple is that the disciple should hear the spiritual master, and therefore by hearing he can make his life sublime and perfect and understand the Lord. So Krishnadas Kaviraj explains that gurus are many, and he says that because anyone who gives spiritual instructions based on the revealed scriptures is accepted as spiritual master. They're actually like here they're mentioned like two types of spiritual masters. One is initiating spiritual master, which is called a Diksha Guru, and the second one is the spiritual master that gives you spiritual instructions on how to perform devotional service, meditation, prayer, how to serve the Lord, and so on. Usually they're the same. So first we meet someone who inspires us, who talks to us about Krishna, who gives us books, with whom we sing kirtans, who tries to engage us in the service. So this is an instructing spiritual master, someone who gives us inspiration to perform our services. But usually some of these persons is very elevated, and he can become our initiating spiritual master. So we take initiation from him. So usually they are the same. But even though we have only one spiritual master that initiates us, in the sense that he gives us the mantra, he gives us the spiritual name, and there are two levels of initiation. First level of initiation is initiation in Harinam, which is initiation in the chanting of the Maha Mantra, so the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And the second level is the second initiation, which comes after we have been purified after chanting the Maha Mantra. Then we are allowed to receive Gayatri mantras, which are 7 in number, and we are allowed to perform deity worship, and therefore our initiation is complete. We have fully grasped the shelter of our spiritual master, and therefore in this shelter we can then progress in our spiritual life. So Diksha Guru and Shiksha Guru. And it is described in the scriptures that they are both identical manifestations of Krishna, although they have different dealings. So what is important is that in the scriptures, spiritual master is considered to be a representative of Krishna, and he's considered to be as good as Krishna. And there is an explanation, which we will mention why that is so, which is that it's like the duty of the disciple is that he worships him with this awe and reverence, and tries to serve him because he was given spiritual knowledge, and spiritual knowledge is considered like the biggest treasure that exists in this world. It's like giving someone pearls, diamonds, or I don't know, whatever someone considers to be very valuable in their life. So when you receive spiritual knowledge, it's like you received the greatest wealth, and this is what you received from the spiritual master. And usually when we receive something that is so beautiful, or I don't know, so overwhelmingly inspiring and whatever, we feel gratitude. So therefore the disciple serves the spiritual master actually out of gratitude. But the spiritual master, he never takes the service for himself, but he like redirects everything the disciple does to the service of Krishna. And this is something that I wanted to point and emphasize, because sometimes, I don't know, devotees go to temples and they visit, and they try to see what's going on there. And I'm just looking for a songbook that I prepared. And there is a song that it is sang every morning for Mangalarati. So the devotees, I'm going to get that because it's important. Just a second. Yeah, so it is a song that is sang before anything, like before the life starts in the morning. I mean, before we do anything in the new day, we sing this song. And this song is called Shishi Gurvashtaka, or 8 Prayers to Guru by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And this song is very important to understand because it actually explains who is the spiritual master and what are his activities. So if you want to understand more about like who is this person and what does he do, how does he talk, how does he walk, then you should understand this song. And I will just read the translation. It's actually a beautiful song in Sanskrit language, and it has a beautiful melody. And if you haven't heard it before, please ask the devotees to sing it for you. It can be sang in the morning and in the evening. It has a morning melody and evening melody, and it's very beautiful. It's a prayer and it's a beautiful meditation also on someone who inspires you. And it was written by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So we already mentioned him when we were explaining about the Disciplic Succession that Srila Prabhupada was mentioning from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Srila Prabhupada. So he's a part of this Disciplic Succession, and he wrote this beautiful song, and by this beautiful song he gave a benediction. So he said that one who with great care and attention loudly recites this beautiful prayer to the spiritual master during the Brahma Muhurta obtains direct service to Krishna, the Lord of Vrindavan, at the time of his death. So during the Brahma Muhurta is I think 1 hour before the sunrise, and it's the most auspicious time to perform spiritual activities. So if one, and usually Brahma Muhurta starts around Mangalarati, which is like 4:30 a.m. in the morning. And if you sing this prayer, then you will obtain direct service to Krishna at the time of your death. But now let's read what is written in this song. So the spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy. So you might wonder, what is this ocean of mercy? Ocean of mercy is actually ocean of instructions of his spiritual master. Actually, it is disciplic succession which leads to Krishna. Just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. So this material world, material existence, is compared to a blazing fire. And you might ask yourself why? Because here everything can be ignited immediately, and then the fire starts. And you can see it, like, for example, this conflict in Ukraine. This is one of the examples of this fire in the material world. It just starts due to some karma, some misunderstanding, and then we have distress, anxiety, and so on. So this is this blazing fire of material existence. And the spiritual master pours from the ocean of mercy, so from the instructions of Krishna and disciplic succession, he pours this mercy of how to get out of the blazing fire of material existence. So because he does that, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master, who is an ocean of auspicious qualities. And spiritual masters do have auspicious quality because they are pure devotees. And there is a book which is entitled, I think, 25 qualities of a pure devotee. So you can read about auspicious qualities of pure devotees in that book. It is very beautiful. And this is how you can recognize someone if the person is exalted. The person is exalted if he or she has these qualities. So the second verse is, what does the spiritual master do? Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing, and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So everything that we do actually pleases the spiritual master, everything that we do in the spiritual sense. If we read books, if we chant, if we sing. And because he is relishing the mellow of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end. He feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. So these symptoms actually describe prema. So this means that the spiritual master has prema for Krishna. And this prema is exhibited in these external symptoms of his body when he actually meditates on Krishna in his mind. So I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. Verse 3. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciple in such worship. So you can see that in Bhakti Yoga there are many temples of various forms of Krishna. And one of these forms, the highest form, is Shri Radha and Krishna. And spiritual master likes to engage in the service, in the temple worship of these deities. And what does he do? He wants to engage his disciples in doing it the same. And there is a reason why he does that. Because in Canto 9 of Srimad Bhagavatam, in a story of Ambarish Maharaj, when, what is his name? He's not Duryodhana, Durvasa Muni, yes, Durvasa Muni. So Durvasa Muni, he was also an exalted yogi, but he was prone to anger. So if you wouldn't do something that he likes, or if you didn't do something that he likes, or which he understood as something that you did wrong, he would get angry. And when he would get angry, then he would curse you in a certain way. So something like that happened, and he tried to kill Maharaj Ambarish by creating some kind of a fiery demon who wanted to attack Maharaj Ambarish. But because Maharaj Ambarish was a pure devotee of the Lord, he was protected by the Lord, because the Lord sent his Sudarshan Chakra to protect him. And this Sudarshan Chakra killed the demon, which was released by Durvasa Muni, and then the Sudarshan Chakra started to chase Durvasa Muni all around the universe to punish him, because he offended the great devotee of the Lord, Maharaj Ambarish. And then first Durvasa Muni, he tries to find shelter in Lord Brahma, because he's the creator of this universe. And Lord Brahma says, I'm sorry, but I'm not the owner of Sudarshan Chakra and I cannot help you. Maybe you should try with Lord Shiva. And then he approaches Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva, who is always in a meditation of Lord Krishna, he says to him, I really cannot help you. I cannot stop Sudarshan Chakra from chasing you. You have to go to Lord Vishnu, who is the owner of the Sudarshan Chakra. And then he goes to Lord Vishnu, who also says that he cannot help him. And because he has offended the greatest devotee of his, and therefore the devotee has right for his protection. And then Durvasa Muni tries to plead his case, saying like, but you are the source of everything, and I asked for your shelter, you must give it to me. Don't you have a heart? Like, what kind of heart do you have that I come here before you and I pray that you protect me and you don't want to protect me? And then Lord Vishnu says that his heart, he doesn't have a heart, because his heart belongs to his devotees, and he's always situated in their heart, and he always thinks of them, and they always think of him, and so on. And he explains it like that. And he also says, among many other things, how he doesn't even, he finds his devotees, his pure devotees, so dear to him, and that he doesn't even want to enjoy everything that is his. And he's actually the master of all. He possesses 6 opulences. He possesses all beauty, all power, or all strength, renunciation, knowledge, and I always forget the 6th one. But he's like the greatest, and everything is his. He's proprietor of everything. But he says that he doesn't want to enjoy this without his devotees. And then Srila Prabhupada takes this verse and he tries to explain it. And he says that Lord is so glorious that that everything he has, he wants to share with his pure devotees. And then he says that a pure devotee knows this transcendental secret. So this is a transcendental secret. And only by expanding the number of the devotees will he give pleasure to the Lord, because the Lord wants to share everything. So if he creates more and more pure devotees, the Lord will enjoy even more. And therefore, that is the reason why Lord Chaitanya even started this movement, because he wanted to propagate all this knowledge and give the opportunity to everyone to become Krishna conscious, pure devotees, and that they can enjoy with the Lord his transcendental opulence, and that would make the Lord very happy. So this is why the spiritual master engages his disciples in such worship, Because if he engages others, if he dissipates the knowledge and he engages other in the service of the Lord, he brings the Lord the most pleasure. So that's the secret of so-called transcendental success. And that's also what we should do, because that's what pleases God the most. If we share the knowledge of him with others, and if we try to awaken others, that they see that actually they're not this body, that they are a spirit soul, that there is something higher, that there is a whole playground in the spiritual world where the God is playing with his pure devotees, where they are doing this or that. So everything is explained. And these activities that the pure souls perform in the spiritual world, they actually start with performing activities by following the instructions of the spiritual master. So one of these instructions is to perform deity worship. And therefore, the spiritual master engages in deity worship, and he induces his disciples in such worship. And they dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments. They clean the deity's temple and perform other similar worship of the Lord. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food. Analyze that which is licked, chewed, drank, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasad, he is satisfied. And I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. So again, the spiritual master follows the instructions of Krishna, which he gave in the Bhagavad Gita, where he says, if you offer me a fruit, a leaf, a flower, or water with devotion, I will accept it. And then in the next verse, he says, whatever you do, whatever you give away, whatever, he mentions a few things, do it as an offering to me. So this is what actually the spiritual master tries to inspire his disciples to do, like offer food, everything you have, to Krishna, and take it as, which is called Bhagavad Prasad, which is actually the mercy of God. So therefore, that's what the spiritual master does, and we offer respectful obeisances to him. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava, and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. So spiritual master is teaching by an example what is the duty of a disciple, and the duty of the disciple is to hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the association of the devotees. And by hearing in the association of the devotees, especially in association of people who have taste for this kind of topics, that person will develop the taste. And actually by this accomplish the goal of life. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the grooves of Vrindavan. I offer my most humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. So this verse explains actually who is the spiritual master in the spiritual world, and Srila Prabhupada explains in the purports that spiritual master is actually considered to be one of the servants of the gopis and Radharani in the spiritual world, or the assistant of Nityananda Prabhu. So he's either in the line of Nityananda Prabhu or either in the line of Radharani. And this is something which, if you like, you can always explore by yourself and then actually see what is the true identity of the spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord. So basically, just because the pure devotees are so pure, so exalted, that they carry the Supreme Personality of Godhead in their hearts. So they are like a walking temple in a way, and the deity of the Lord is situated in their hearts. So because they are confidential servitors of such a deity in this world and confidential servitors of the Lord in the spiritual world, they are considered to be the same as the Lord in the sense possessing these qualities of purity as the Lord, and also because they understand the intimacy and confidentiality of the relationship with the Lord. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. Sorry, I skipped. Yes, and he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord, and this is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hari Krishna. So this is one more example of who the spiritual master is, and in which way he should be served, honored as a person. And also, when we honor someone and serve someone, it should be done with love. And he actually helps us to establish our relationship with the Lord, because by developing our relationship with the Supreme Personality, with the spiritual master, we are actually, in a way, practicing how to serve in the spiritual world. And because we don't have the eyes to see the spiritual master, because we don't have the eyes to see the Supreme Lord, he manifests himself as spiritual master. And this I will point out after I finish this poem. And the last verse, the 8th verse: by the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. So, this last verse is very important, because it is very important to meet the spiritual master. And when we meet a spiritual master, it's actually, we were given mercy of Krishna. It is said that there is one line, which is the line of the spiritual master, and the other line, which is a line of Krishna, and they go simultaneously together. Spiritual master and Krishna, they work together, and then they give us instruction in our spiritual life. So, as we said now at the beginning, throughout this lecture, we said that there are 2 types of spiritual masters. That there is a Diksha, initiating spiritual master, and Shiksha. Shiksha is the one who gives instruction, spiritual master. And they're manifestations of Krishna. And it is explained in the scriptures, and also in this chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita, that the spiritual master manifests himself in 2 ways. He manifests himself externally as these 2 types of spiritual masters, and we also said that one person can be both. It can initiate you and give you spiritual instructions, but you can have a lot of other spiritual masters, because we said there are many of them, and anyone who can impart to you the instructions which can be found in the revealed scriptures, he should be considered as an instructing spiritual master. And so these are the external manifestations of Krishna. But there is also an internal manifestation of Krishna as a spiritual master, and that is Paramatma, the super soul. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that there is an Atma and Paramatma situated in the heart of every conditioned living beings. Atma is us, the spirit souls, and Paramatma is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is a witness, who gives remembrance and forgetfulness, who gives instructions on how to lead our life. But he also is considered as a Chaitya Guru, which means a guru in the heart. And it is said very nicely in the Bhagavad Gita that when one performs devotional service to the Lord, something happens. And he says, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, "To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me." So you can see that they work parallelly, because many times we receive an initiation from the spiritual master, but due to some circumstances in life, we cannot be always physically present with the person. But it is said in the scriptures that if you follow the spiritual master's instructions in your life, if you apply them and you get certain realizations and you purify your heart and you perform devotional service with love, then Krishna manifests in your heart and he gives you instructions on how to further progress in your spiritual life. So that is the importance of spiritual master. And since we are so conditioned in this life, we don't understand many things, especially we don't understand our spiritual nature, and we cannot see God, we cannot even recognize who is a pure devotee. We need scriptures to understand actually what are the qualities of pure devotee, and maybe intellectually then we can understand what kind of person should they be, and then we can maybe compare, but we don't know. And therefore there is a warning in a way in the scriptures, and it is said in this way, that's what Srila Prabhupada says. One should always remember that a person who is reluctant to accept a spiritual master and be initiated is sure to be baffled in his endeavor to go back to Godhead. One who is not properly initiated may present himself a great devotee, but in fact he is sure to encounter many stumbling blocks on his path of progression towards spiritual realization, with the result that he must continue his term of material existence without relief. Such a helpless person is compared to a ship without a rudder, which I had to find what that means. It means kormilo, so of a ship. For such a ship can never reach its destination because it doesn't have the rudder by which it can actually sail. So therefore it is imperative to accept the spiritual master. And then it is said that if there is no chance to serve directly, then serve him by remembering his instructions. There is no difference between the spiritual master and his instructions. His words are the pride of a disciple. There's so many, I mean, oh my God, the topic of spiritual master, there's so many things that can be said, but yeah, sometimes people think that I don't need anyone to tell me like what to do, but we need help. And if someone lovingly gives us instructions and tries to make us see what is for our benefit, then we should follow, because we don't know. But the problem with the following is trust. And there has been so many false gurus. There has been so many manipulations in the best institutions with the best philosophy. And therefore I could say, sometimes it's legitimate to say, okay, I don't trust. But one has to see that not a blade of grass moves without the will of Krishna. So therefore, even if I had a situation in which my trust was broken and I was hurt in some way, there was a reason why that happened. And that also doesn't mean that that in the world there are no persons who can actually give us spiritual instructions. I loved the book of Gorgovinda Goswami. I don't know when he left his body, but he left many beautiful instructions and beautiful books, and he was also a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and he was trying to share the knowledge of Bhakti Yoga in the time when many people got hurt by certain conduct of certain persons. But he would always say that we are like, how is it possible that someone so pure as Srila Prabhupada never left any pure devotees? Like, that's impossible. There are always pure devotees in this world. It's just the problem is our inability to see them. And he wrote many books about how to find a guru. But it's interesting that a guru can be found only by a sincere prayer. And many people ask themselves, like, well, how can I get a spiritual master? When will I get a spiritual master? And something like that. But actually, when we search for the spiritual master, we should do a heart meditation of how honestly we want it. Because many want to compensate the spiritual master with their, I don't know, father, teacher, friend, husband, wife, I don't know. They are lacking in some kind of a relationship in their life, so they want to fulfill it with a spiritual personality. But that's not the way it goes. So Srila Prabhupada emphasized here that there is no difference between the spiritual master and his instructions. So when we accept the spiritual master, we accept him to receive instructions and to mold our life according to these instructions. Of course, there should be a relationship, an exchange, but mostly is like you were given something, the pearls, the diamonds, this spiritual knowledge that can actually give you the highest bliss. So all you have to do is take those instructions, mold your life according to these instructions, and as Prabhupada says, that the words of the spiritual master are the pride of the disciple. So these instructions should become your pride, and that's how you lead your life in Bhakti Yoga. And then Krishna comes, and Krishna manifests in the heart, and he gives instructions. And that's how I go closer and closer to Krishna, because that's the whole point. So, yes, now it's 5 to 8. So this will be part 1 of this whole chapter, because there are more things to say here, like a lot more things to say. Yes, and I would also like to mention some more things about spiritual master. So we mentioned how he manifests himself as Chaita Guru, so the Guru in the heart. And in Srimad Bhagavatam it is explained how this works. So the creator of this universe is Lord Brahma, and he received instructions from Lord Krishna within his heart. And that's actually, if you read the Bhagavad Gita again, page 28, just look at the Disciplic Succession that is described here. So this is the Disciplic Succession that is described by Srila Prabhupada. This is his. It is the succession from which he comes from. And it starts with Krishna, and the second person is Brahma. So this is our line, and this is how Krishna manifested his knowledge into our disciplic succession. So first he manifested himself as a spiritual master in the heart of Lord Brahma, and he actually helped him to create the universe, because Lord Brahma, he's also born in the darkness of ignorance. He's literally born in darkness. He's not always born on a lotus flower, even though we think that, the ones who read Srimad Bhagavatam, but only in some kalpas he's born on a lotus flower. Sometimes he's born from the wind, sometimes he's born from the ocean, and everything is dark around him, so he's quite in the darkness and he doesn't know what to do. And then he hears from within the words tapa, which means austerities, and he has this intelligence and the Lord and within his heart, and then he concludes, because the Lord gives the intelligence in the heart, so he concludes, oh, I should perform austerities, and therefore he performs austerities, and he gets the darshan of the Lord. He receives also certain mantras, and he sees the spiritual world. And only when he sees Krishna's spiritual world, his associates, he's able to create. Only when he sees everything, he can create. So that's also something that is quite interesting, and also an example of how Krishna is a Chaita Guru in the heart. So for Lord Brahma, he didn't have to manifest outside, he manifested from within. And the Lord Brahma his body is made of intelligence, so he's the most intelligent living being in this universe, so therefore he was able to understand the instructions of Lord Krishna and apply them. And that's how the whole knowledge went. And when he saw the spiritual world, and when he saw all the associates and the planets and everything, he got instructions from the Lord, which are, I think, Chaturshloki. It's called the 4 essential verses, where he explains everything. He explains himself, who he is actually. He explains who he is not, which means illusory energy and Maya, everything in this material world. He says, I am within and without, but still I'm away. And he also emphasizes that one should look for this knowledge everywhere, directly and indirectly. Again, giving an instruction to Lord Brahma that it is most essential to find a spiritual master who will guide us in our spiritual life. So in the 4th shloka, Lord Krishna explains that to Lord Brahma. And if you are very interested in what he says and what these 4 shlokas are, you can read them in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2. Maybe Sundarananda will talk about them very soon. So this is one of the examples. And yeah, so I guess we have mentioned everything. Yeah, and it's very nice also to mention this. It's actually quite poetic that only out of his immense compassion does the personality of Godhead reveal himself as a spiritual master. So the spiritual master is like a mercy potency of the spirit of the Lord. So Lord, who is full of compassion, he manifests as a spiritual master. And there's so many things we can say about that, from, for example, Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which was written by Sanatana Goswami. So one of the Goswamis we mentioned at the beginning, who received the instructions from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And based on these instructions that he received from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he wrote the book which is called Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And in this book, he actually explained the journey of Gopakumar from this material world to the spiritual world, what he actually experiences, in which way. And it is very beautiful. It's actually, I'm just going to say that, and then yeah, we can have 10 or 15 more minutes, because it's so beautiful. It's like it's talking about compassion and mercy of the Lord. So the Lord was trying to explain to Gopakumar how he actually ended up in Krishna Loka, which is the highest planet in the spiritual world. He said, like, you had me dancing like a madman for many of your lifetimes. And I was thinking, like, maybe in this life he will finally understand and he will finally turn his head towards me, but nothing happened. And then I thought of, like, maybe in this life he will understand, maybe in that life he will understand, but nothing happened. And then the Lord said that, of course, everything that I'm saying now I'm paraphrasing, but you can read it in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. So basically in the end he said, like, well, I was really tired of waiting for you, so therefore I manifested as your spiritual master, and I gave you this Gopal mantra which you chanted, and that's how you got to me. So even if sometimes we have no credit, especially Lord's mercy comes, and especially in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that's why it is so important to know about him, to read about Chaitanya Charitamrita, to actually understand this mercy, because that's the reason why Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, so that everyone, regardless of the position in which they are, they can receive this mercy and attain the highest goal. Like, someone is giving you the biggest diamond in the universe for free, and you are so unable to appreciate it because you don't understand what it is. So, but still, the Lord is tolerant, the Lord is patient, and the Lord is merciful. So this spiritual master, he's considered to be Ashraya Vigraha. Ashraya means shelter, and Vigraha means form. So Ashraya Vigraha, or the manifestation of form of the Lord, of whom we must take shelter. So the Lord actually sends the spiritual master so we can have shelter in this world. And when we take shelter of the spiritual master in this world, we actually take shelter of the instructions of the spiritual master. So that's actually our biggest shelter. Okay, so I guess to conclude with one more thing. So this is like the instruction on what we have to do. Unless one gets the spiritual encouragement by following the instructions of the spiritual master, it is not possible to make advancement. So these instructions, they actually give us the spiritual encouragement to go forward. Therefore, one's development of taste for executing those instructions is the test of one's devotional service. So, the taste actually means the attachment and the love by which we execute the instructions. So you can test yourself of how much you are sincere by doing these things. Initially, one must develop confidence by hearing the signs of devotion from a qualified spiritual master. Then, as he associates with devotees and tries to adopt these means instructed by the spiritual master in his own life, his misgivings and other obstacles are vanquished by his execution of devotional service. Strong attachment for the transcendental service of the Lord develops as he continues listening to the message of the Lord. And if he steadfastly proceeds in this way, he is certainly elevated to the spontaneous love for the Lord. So that is the way. And today we only touched upon the first feature of Lord Krishna, the spiritual master. Next time, in 2 weeks, we will going to talk about devotees, avatars, incarnations, expansions of the Lord, Shaktis, and Supreme Lord. So thank you very much for your attention. Also, every time I speak, unfortunately, I forget to say, but I somehow think that it is presumed that you can write comments and ask questions. You can write comments and ask questions in Croatian language as well. But I will just speak in English because it's just easier that way somehow through the years. So, but I see that there is no questions. But maybe next time also, if you want to follow in 2 weeks, you can have some questions that regard this lecture. And then we can talk about it. Because there are people here who are practicing for a very long time, and maybe some people who started it, maybe you don't understand something that I said, or I was not very clear. Anyway, thank you very much for your attention and giving me the opportunity to speak about some wonderful topics. Hare Krishna. Have a nice evening.